Hey guys, I got a brand new tutorial for you here today. I'm going to take you through this painting from start to finish in acrylic paint. This was taken, the reference was taken from a drive that I took about a month ago, and I shared some of this with you guys through email of the sky that I saw, and I was driving along the Yellowstone River when I saw this, so I just wanted to try and combine the river and the sky, bring it all together in kind of a cool piece. So that's kind of where this thing came from, and I don't think there's really a whole lot else to talk about, so let's just get into it. If you guys have questions, let me know in the comments below. Enjoy. All right, so we've got black, yellow, orange. These are cad yellow and orange. Phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, red, and quinacridone magenta. That's pretty much the colors I'm going to use. Oh yeah, and white. I always go through a lot of white. Put some over here. Then we've got water, paper towel, and brushes I'll cover just kind of along the way. I'm also going to use some glazing medium. Don't need a lot. I'm going to start with this 1-inch flat brush. Little angular brush, like a 1/2 inch, I guess. I'll probably mix with my palette knife a little bit. So let's go ahead and start with the top of the sky, which is going to be a lot of blue, white, probably some ultramarine blue, some black, a little bit of magenta. More blue, ultramarine blue, a little more black. I don't know, that's a decent start. Take some medium, I'm going to add that to it, as well as some water. I actually might have wanted that to be a bit lighter. So something like that. I'll start with this angular brush. I might not even use that larger brush. I want to get some nice solid colors, block in this painting. So as I start with this blue, it'll fade into sort of some magenta, so I'm just going to kind of pull that a little bit overboard, further down than probably how I'm going to leave it, and then I'll cover that up with magenta. I just want to get a good amount of coverage. Kind of better to go overboard with your dark values than have to kind of meet yourself in the middle. I'd rather put too much darker blue down and then cover it up. I think it's easier to cover it up with a lighter color rather than darker colors. Darker colors are just hard to get a good, consistent, even coverage. So I'm just going to leave a little line of canvas underneath here, in between here, and I'll end up covering that. Looking good. So pretty simple. Just thinking of where I want these areas of blue, and I'm leaving just a small amount here and there of some bare canvas, just so I have an idea of where things are going to be, and in that case it's going to be the magenta. A little bit of blue down here. And lastly, I'm going to end up having some blue down through here. Now, areas that have a lot more texture, which would be the land itself rather than the sky, I guess I'm not really worried about, you know, going overboard what I just explained, because when you've got a lot of texture and you're adding those dark values over the top of lighter values, it's just easier to get it right because you're not worried about things looking smooth. So what I just said kind of only applies to things that you need a nice smooth blends for, things like the skies, the clouds. Down here, I just kind of, I'll build it up all together, so to speak. Okay. Looking good. I am going to, well, no, we're going to use this color since we have it. I'm going to fill in the bottom of this. So now the water is going to be down through here. So this is like a river coming through. I haven't really explained it, I guess, yet. It's a river coming through a landscape, pretty hilly landscape, and with that sky glowing kind of right above, the sun being in the center, so we can reflect that off the water. And so down through here below this line is pretty much the reflection of the water. And just trying to repeat those same colors that we have in the sky down below here. Just kind of give it that good reflection look. All right. Next thing I'm going to be doing is adding some of those magenta colors I talked about. So I'm going to take red and magenta, mix that together with some white. Get a nice pink. A little bit of medium. I don't know, I like this glazing medium lately. Has a nice workable feel to it. Now, for this, I'm going to get a lot of that paint off of there. I don't want a lot. I'm going to be really careful here. Now that layer underneath is pretty much dry. I'm essentially just going dry over wet right now. Doesn't take long. So I got a lot of questions. How do I keep my paints open so long? And the answer I give to a lot of people is I really don't. I'm going to add orange now. I just sort of learned to love the quick drying properties of these paints. I'm going to dab that off. So this is not at all, this is again just blocking it in, a very detailed blocking in, so to speak. I'm not worried about really anything other than just getting those values in place, getting those colors in place. Take a little bit of gray and just kind of tone that back a bit. Yeah, I'm just not worried about any specifics. I just want to get things to a place where I can see that finish line. And as long as I get the colors close, it generally speaking will get me there. So, not really looking for the perfect mixture, and you just don't need it in this first go around. So many opportunities to make changes at this point. Just want to get those shapes in place. So reason I call it sort of a detailed blocking in is because I am very cautious about the different shapes that I'm creating. Not so much color, not entirely so much the value, but I just want all those shapes in place, and then I can kind of see it. And it also gives me a jump start to that second layer. So I want some orange, a little medium, and some white. And I'm just, I don't know, I'm starting to feel like I'm just losing that system I had from going from dark to light. I'm just using the colors I have. It really doesn't matter, I guess. It's what you're comfortable with. It probably is more easy to just start with all your darks and work your way towards the lights, as I do think it is easier to layer the lights and blend them over the tops of darks. But I would say for this blocking in stage, and that's pretty much what I'm referring to, it's just not as important. It's more important just to get those things in place first. Like I said, give yourself that jump start. Okay. A little more pink and white. A little bit of that orange. I think I'm too dark right now. Okay, we're getting there. Take a little blue, add that in. It's more of like a gray, but it'll probably appear more blue. Okay, so what I've got going here is that orange I added, essentially the highlights around what will be more like shadows. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. I'm gonna let me just get a little bit more of this color I mixed above that. Okay. I'm gonna take some black. Or just go ahead and wash my brush. I got 2 cups of water, one for the dirty work, the other one to more or less clean the brush. Black and blue. Let's see, maybe something close to there. Grab a little medium. A little bit lighter. Yeah. And what these will be are little clouds floating across. That orange is what's illuminated by the sun. Again, it can be rough. It doesn't have to be smooth. This is, to me, just a blocking in stage. I think I get a lot of those questions. How do I keep my paints open so I can blend them? Just because they do start to dry and, you know, that texture of the canvas starts to show through so quickly. And what I try to do is just kind of ignore it, and that next layer over the top will smooth things out even more so. So another answer to that question is I really just don't think about it. I let it look a little bit rough. I know it's not going to be smooth. I just let that happen and I fix it later. That glazing medium, add some of that. That can help a lot. Yeah. Okay, get a nice dark area right through there. Pick up some orange and red. And I'm gonna give a little brownish look to this mixture. Lighten that up. Good enough for right now. Grab a little more orange, a little magenta, a little more of this orange mixture. A little blue. A little medium. Mix that all together. Kind of a dirty blue color. Somewhat grayish. I think I can go lighter. Add white to it. Okay, now I'm going to add more white, magenta. A little bit of orange, bring some of that gray in there. I'll mix all these colors together. A little medium, a little water. I think I'd probably go more of like a gray. Something like that. Gosh, I still think it's might be too dark. So I'm blocking in this area. I've talked about this in the past. This is kind of the same as what I was explaining earlier. I'm essentially just blocking it in with the darkest value in that given area. And so for this, it's kind of this darker purpley grayish color. But I don't stress over it either, which is kind of the point I was trying to make. If it doesn't always come together the way I want to, maybe if the way I go about things doesn't quite work out, well, that's fine. I think you can achieve results in so many different ways. And if it doesn't come together in the order that you would like it to, or the process you'd like it to, and it makes it maybe more difficult for you, well, that's just an opportunity to learn something new. So there's another way to think about it. Definitely should be stress-free. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Yeah. I am going to wash my brush. I'm going to take some yellow, more of that medium, some white. Maybe some yellow right through here. Oh, that's fine. Good enough. Just get it on there. There'll be like some orange through here also. Kind of blend that in while I can. Okay. Wash the brush. Grab some magenta. I'm going to add it to this mixture. A little bit of yellow. Oops, I also had my camera timeout on me. I hope you didn't miss too much there. But I'm just going through this area of the sky now with some lighter pinkish orange. And I'm going to have some highlights through here. And so I'm getting the idea of that started. They don't need, you know, whenever I do something like this, whatever idea you have in mind, whatever photo you're following, whatever, it never has to be, I just go quickly. And I don't worry about specifics like this because they're just kind of some random textures. As long as you get the idea of them correct. We've got some shadows, highlights, on and on up through here. Orange, darker turquoise, blue, purpley, back to the orange, back to the bluish purple, black to the orange. As long as you kind of get that pattern correct, I think things are going to turn out pretty good. So I move quickly through areas like that. I don't stress about it. Because when you get that pattern correct, it ends up looking correct. And that's really all you can ask for. So I just skirt through this quick. That's looking pretty good. Boy, I'm having all sorts of problems. Lost my palette cam too for there for a second. So I've just got some orange and some white. A little bit of that red still left in there. And what I'm looking to do, sort of redefine some of these highlights I had going on. Been a while since I've done these videos. I'm kind of losing my touch there with the cameras. Hopefully everything is working now. Oops. Didn't want that. Oh, maybe I did. Had a cold this past couple weeks. Pardon my throat clearing. Rough cold. Coughed a lot. So that was my thank goodness it was post Thanksgiving. Wasn't actually, I caught it on Thanksgiving, so did come after that though, so that's something to be thankful for. Okay, so see, I'm just adding these highlights around these shadows, and it starts to make that cloud pop out a little bit at you. A little more red, maybe some black with that, just a small amount, and keep that a little bit closer to the shadow. So we're kind of layering the highlights really casually. I'm not thinking too hard about this. It's getting there. Okay. I'm going to take some more blue. And I'm going to try to lift this side up a bit more. So again, another question is, why do I do things in acrylics? Look how I can just go right over the top so quickly, so easily. And I can start to lift that pink area up into the sky. Just a lot less stressful, a lot easier on myself. Okay. So this color is a little bit more dull than that pink that's already there. And so this is kind of just a good color to blend that off into the darker blues. Okay. More red and magenta. Few highlights on these clouds right here. Looking good. Got a cloud over here that I want. I had it drawn in there. There's going to be some highlights going back up over the top of this stuff here. Maybe I can just kind of sketch that in just to... Some things just kind of take shape as I go along too. I might have an idea for something, but I found if I just kind of keep moving, sometimes forget about the initial idea and just let the brush do its work. You start to see things you didn't see before that you might want to go with or stick with. So I do that often. I'm going to take the lighter color and I'm going to start to brighten that up down low. So now I'm kind of sacrificing the color for the tone. I want to raise the tone up. That throws the color off a little bit, but that's okay. I can glaze, I can do things to saturate that color, resaturate that color again later. I'd rather get some of the tone right when it comes to the highlights anyways. It's one thing that I really pay attention to when it comes to the tonal values of the painting, getting the values correct, is I really worry about the highlights more than anything. I don't know, that's just kind of my process. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick step back from this and come back and finish the foreground. Okay, now I'm going to move to the foreground, probably just add some white paint over the top of this area right here, which is going to be white. It's going to be the sun. Get that canvas covered. Okay. So with the mountains, or hills, it's going to be made up with some darker color, some black and white, and touch of red. Not much though. Reddish gray. Probably going to want to go lighter in some areas. A little bit of blue with that. Something like this. I'm going to go in between these blue marks I laid down. And this hill off in the distance is going to be a little darker. So that's some black and red. More red. We'll see. Yeah, something like that maybe. So these dark areas are going to be trees, essentially, pine trees. But right now I'm just kind of scrubbing in those blocks of where they're going to be. All right. Take some of that blue color I had left over. I'm going to lighten this up. Just a hint of blue with this. And I'm going to start to block in this hill over here. A little bit of orange and white. Red in there. Something like that. All right. Pretty simple, not much to say here. Just kind of start to lighten this up as we get closer to the center, to this area. More orange and red. Mix that with white. Okay, maybe something like this. Yeah, a little more color. All right. Some trees over to the left here. Get the rest of this blocked in right there. And we're looking pretty good. I'll wash my brush. Take some yellow and white. Some orange. And beneath the glow of the sun in the water, I'm going to start to create a glow as well. Going to need more orange. that nice and vibrant. Start to add some red, touch of black. Okay, now I'm going to move to more magenta. I'm going to create more of a violet color. Add some magenta in this. At first it's kind of dirty. But I want it to be somewhat dulled down. So it's just kind of a good place to start using the same colors. Mixing that together. All right. Take some more blue. Now some white along with some blue, and start to blend all that together. Over to the left here, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but it's going to end up being some shoreline. So I'm going to go ahead and just get some of that in. Okay. That's a pretty good blocked in painting. I'm going to take another break here, come back, and we'll kind of go to the next step. All right, now I'm ready for the second layer, and I'm going to kind of just do this basically the same thing, working from these dark blues up top and then downward towards the water. So it's almost just like repeating the same process over again, except for this time things start to look more smooth. Painting gets more realistic. Okay, so still got these colors. And they're still pretty wet, so we go right into it. And I'm switching to this round blender brush. And I'm basically just trying to mix that same color I had over here. So fairly close to it. That's pretty close. You start with something about like that. Take some medium, add some medium to it. And what I'm going to do here is really start to focus on getting these colors to look correct, getting them to be what I want them to be. Start to really focus on composition more. Just be very careful with kind of what I'm doing here at this point. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush. Get some more blue, a little more black, and probably a touch of yellow this time. So we get kind of an in-between color right there. A little bit lighter. So this is slightly darker than what I just laid down. It almost looks the same, but it'll dry a bit darker. And I'm going to add some magenta. I'll lighten that up a bit. Something on the canvas there. There we go. Almost. There we go. Huh. Oh well. Okay. So things are starting to smooth out a bit. This brush does so much work for you. Okay, it's looking good. I'm going to take some more black with some magenta. I'm going to dip my finger in water, tap it on the palette just so I can pick up a little bit. I don't want a lot. A little more magenta. And on the back side of this pink, I'm going to get some darker shadow laid in here. Okay. I'm just going to try to go right into those highlights, which are kind of magenta, so that blue that's already on my brush will kind of work. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. So I think if I wash my brush, Get some of that blue off of there. Then pick up a little bit of this magenta color. Yeah, that'll just kind of help me ease those blends together. Those dark shadows blended into these areas. You kind of need an in-between color, and this is just a good one right here. Okay. Nice and soft. Looks good. I'm going to pick up some white and orange now. Get some of that water. This is going to be close to the color I want up through here. Look how nice and easy that blends into it. So this layer it's pretty thin. This is a pretty thin layer. It's almost like a wash of color, but it's just enough paint on the brush that it leaves a mark on the canvas. That just makes it easier to blend for me. So if you're wondering why you can't get a blend like this, part of it has to do with it's a very fine woven canvas, and the other part is that I'm painting in kind of these thin washes. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Wash my brush, dab it off, and I'm going to return to this blue for a second. And what I'd like to find is a color that is a little bit darker than this area up here. A little more gray. Something like this. Probably go even darker. Maybe introduce some magenta into this. Okay, and just going to clean up that edge. A little bit darker through here. Just cleaning up the edge of this clouds, the edge of these clouds right there. And add a bit of white. Okay. Boy, that train's loud today. And right through here, just gonna lighten up a couple things. Okay. Looks pretty good. Wash my brush. And I'm going to think a bit more about the highlights, these orange colors. Pick up that angular brush again. I'm going to grab some orange and white. And red. Might grab some more red, magenta. And I'm just pulling this orange up into these shadows, just creating some sporadic highlights through some of these clouds. It's also just kind of buffing out what I have here. Wash that brush again. Go back to kind of that highlight color. And just sharpening up some of these highlights. More orange and white, brightening that up again. Okay, so that's getting me started. I'm going to switch to maybe this small filbert brush. Has kind of a rounded edge, a little more control though. I'm going to pick up some white, mix it with some orange and magenta. A little yellow and white as well. And I'm going to start to refine some of these shapes up here, these clouds. So I'd like to move into smaller brushes with each layer. I feel like the smaller brush you use, the more detail and realism you can kind of pull out of something. Okay, so lightening up this area up top, up above these clouds again, and now I'm probably just going to dive in to these clouds once more. Try to get some more accurate shapes. So I've got some blue and black, mix it with this pink here, and probably add some more magenta. Get some water. I'm going to start to reshape some of these clouds. So I'm mixing some red and orange into this, lightening it up, and that's kind of the color of these clouds over here. So I'm adding little clouds now. I've got some big swaths of orange through here, and right in the center of these patches of orange, just like this one here, I'm going to start to form these clouds. Oh, white and orange. There's some areas I'm going to start to refine. All right, let's go ahead and change out the palette. And save my colors. All right, so where did we leave off? I think what I'm going to try to do is refine that big old cloud just slightly more. Some orange, white, magenta. Just lightening up, reducing the amount of shadow through here. Soften this edge up. Just little things that bother me. It's kind of a personal matter. Okay. That's looking a bit better. Let's go ahead and stick with that for now. And I'm going to move lower in the sky. Get some water, white and black. And I'm going to take some magenta, some phthalo blue, just a little bit, like that much. Add it to some gray. And what I want to try to do is figure out how my clouds are going to look precisely. So I'm kind of darkening down some of these clouds right here. And I'm going to darken a few areas in between some of these highlights that I started to get into place. I don't want to go overboard with this brush. It doesn't provide that much control. It is a bit of a wider brush. So just a few areas just to kind of move me along. That's probably about it. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. and go to that smaller filbert that I was using before. I'm going to pick up some medium, just kind of mix it into that color. And I'm going to take some white, tiny bit of phthalo blue, something like that. And I'm going to brighten up the top of this cloud right here. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to take this color I had, some of this orange, and on the top of my mountains, I'm going to grab some glazing medium, add that in. The tops of these mountains right here, I want to lighten it up. Looks like some light coming in from below. So I jump around to a lot of different places. I don't normally stick to just like one area. But sometimes you might think, well, maybe I do stick around some areas. I block it off though. Maybe I'll stick to this whole area, but I'll jump around a lot within it. And then, so when it comes to this, I'm just kind of focused on these clouds right now, just right through here. And I'm not going to get hung up, I guess, on one individual area is what I'm trying to say. I'll just kind of jump around, build it up. And as I keep working at it, things start to come to me and I start to figure it out. So that's kind of the process I go through in my head. A little bit of orange and red mixed with white. I'm going to open that up right there. And then I'm going to just kind of stick with that pattern. I'm going to take some magenta, some orange, kind of mix that together with a little medium. A little bit of yellow. And let's see here. I outline these clouds with some of this highlight color. Another train coming through. I took a break, which you guys might not know about. There's not that many trains that come through. It's actually like an hour later now. Okay. So, kind of doing the same thing I did up above where I'm trying to go from light to middle to dark. So like yellow, orange, red, and then kind of this purpley violet color. So I'm just kind of outlining the clouds with this reddish orange. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Gonna get this cloud roughed in over here. And there's a couple of small clouds floating up above, right through there. Maybe one right here. Could even do one maybe a little bit higher. Okay. Looks good. Wash my brush. And I'm going to switch to the highlights down in that cloud now. So kind of just some red. Look how vibrant that is. Red and magenta. Add some white. Add some orange. That's bright. Okay. That's pretty close. More red. I think that'll do for now. Take some medium, add a little bit in there. And start to refine this cloud, starting with the highlights. So it's not, I've got to the point where the paint's flowing pretty good. And I'm just trying to do my best to follow kind of what I already laid down. And maybe a few adjustments, but not a lot. I just want to brighten up these highlights. Start bringing the contrast out. All right. Oof, took a lot of concentration. So that's looking better. I'm going to get a little more refined in my approach. Maybe not quite yet, but I'm almost there. I'm going to brighten a few down low. I don't want to go overboard. I want these lines to be pretty thin, detailed, and it's not quite there yet. So this is kind of just like a roughed in idea of that, but a lot more. It's a lot closer to the finished result anyways. Okay. It's looking good. I'm going to take some yellow and white and medium And I need to brighten up some areas through here. So it needs to be a lot brighter than what it is. And use this word a lot, but just kind of refine those clouds down some more. Take some white, mix that into some of this pink color. So I'm lightening up a lot of these areas throughout these clouds here. Okay. We're getting there. It's taking a while though, isn't it? Looking for a smaller, here's a different, just a newer filbert, nice clean edge. A Skoda is what who it's made by. Barcelona, I don't know. I'm gonna pick up some of this highlight color. A little bit of this orange in it. And what I'll end up doing is little things like this, where I brighten up the bottom of this cloud here, adding little bitty highlights like that. So that's kind of the next level of detail. Smaller brush, more control. Brightening up this even more. Looking good. Starting to get there. I want to create some brighter highlights down low through here. And it's a lot easier to do this with oils, which is why I like oils. It's hard to really brighten colors up like this with acrylics. But can at least get halfway there. So there's a little bit of the detail going in that I'd like to achieve. But right now I think kind of get into a place where I'm ready to move on to the horizon, the landscape, the foreground. Take a quick break, and then I'll kind of get into that. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, starting with this mountain, is to kind of mix that dark gray red that I had before. Maybe even be more red like that. A little water. So that's probably closer right there. Let's go ahead and stick with that. And the top of my hill here, is going to have kind of an outline. Just like that. And then as it goes down this way, kind of opens up, and then another one like that. Kind of wipe that off it, redo it. So something like that. And I'm just going to try to more accurately shape what these trees are going to be. Reshape these trees into what they're going to be. I think, yeah. Going to have the sky come down lower through this area. So like right there. Just get rid of that part of the hill. Let that dry and I can go over the top, fix it again. And then the same goes kind of for the water down below I was just looking at. I'm going to want that to be more on the lines of this. Take some white. So that just kind of gets the shape of that redefined a little bit more. Yeah, so that's kind of the shape I'm going for now. Back to the trees. So really just using and manipulating this brush any way I can. Just to kind of get pattern to look more of like what I hoped it would. while I'm doing this, I'm going to go to the blues also. So I'm going to kind of go and break up these trees. With the blue color. Now, what you got to keep in mind is that this blue color is representing snow on the hillside. So I just kind of think to myself, where might a meadow be? How should this look? Just kind of picture the trees and then try to reverse it. Just spotting on this color. Pretty easy. Just takes some patience. Just executing this brush pattern, waiting for it to take shape. All right, it's getting there. Again, not much to say about this. I'm just tapping on this color, just tapping it on. Tap, 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 tap. Trying to be very careful about not going overboard with that color, but I also want to get some work done on it as well. So I'm trying to move fast, trying to be careful about it at the same time. Okay. Some snow along the edge down here. Some ice maybe. Ice covered in snow, perhaps. Same thing over here. Gonna have some more snow. Okay, looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go back to that darker color. Kind of lay that back, some of those trees back in there. So tapping this brush over the top again, just adding the dark texture back in. Fairly straightforward. Okay, that's looking good. I think I can get away with a few hints of some trees down low. Down through here. I think we got too many patches of snow. Okay. That's looking good. Wash my brush. Now we're going to move to just kind of a flat gray here. And need to get some trees. There's going to be some trees through here. So we're going to cover up some of this. Imagine these to be big, round cottonwoods, river bottom trees, brush. And then when the trees get underneath the sun, they start to get orange and red. And then just add some highlights of that color over here to a couple of these trees. I'm going to kind of wash some reddish orange over the top of this dark color just above those trees. Washing it so it's a transparent layer. I can even wipe some of it away with my hands just to brighten that up. So that looks pretty good. Some grass down through here. It's going to be some darker color at the base of these trees. Okay, it's looking pretty good. And then same thing over with the right here. We're gonna have some darker colors. Some objects, some rocks coming along the hill here. Some more rocks up top, kind of darken up some of these areas. Okay, so just some random textures. I'm really just kind of winging it at this point. Mix some darker color again. And I'm going to have something over down to the left here. Some shoreline, like I said. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Lighten up maybe a couple areas. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, take a break, then get to the water. Okay, so with the water, what I'd like to do is first just make sure I've got my colors accurate, that I'm happy with it. So I think I'm going to pick up, kind of start in that light area and kind of start over to the left here. I just want to make sure that my shorelines are good and that I'm using the right color. So we got a lot of these pinks up top. I kind of want that represented low in the sky, or low in the water. So kind of adding some pink. Okay. Probably take some more red, orange, and white. Kind of brighten that up. More than anything, I want to make sure that that shoreline is really how I want it. I want to lift it up. It'll make more sense in a few minutes, but I'm gonna kind of leave that for right now, let it dry. Wash my brush. And take some yellow, some white, sharpen up that highlight. And while that's still wet, introduce some orange. Try to blend that. Blend that together. Grab more red. So I'm trying to pretty much match the colors as we go. Move lower into the water. But make it smoother. Make it pop out at you a little more. And of course make a few tweaks. A little water. And this is more of a pinkish, reddish tone. And I'm going to get that right underneath that orange. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is grab my big old round blender brush, pick up some medium, just kind of fluff that down into the violet. Okay, looks pretty good. I think I can probably give that shoreline a little more love. Okay, take another quick break and I'll come back. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to move to like a small round brush and I'm going to start adding some what will appear to be ripples in the water. And do like some red. Some orange. So I'm making kind of like a burgundy color, brick red color. Maybe something like that. Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is begin to add little random riffles. And this round brush, it's almost like a liner brush, makes for a good brush to add itty bitty textures. Back and forth. just touching the canvas, barely touching. And then as I get lower, probably break out the blue a bit more. And just kind of continue along like this. One little stroke at a time. So I'm just going to try to continue with this pattern into some of this dark blue area down low. And this doesn't have to be the final result. This just, it's kind of like that first layer of detail for me up in the sky. Just something to get that pattern down. Something to give the appearance of that water rippling. It's just an idea. It's almost like in order to get to a realistic feel in a painting, you've got to paint sort of impressionistic. You got to get the feeling first, then work on the specifics. So I like some of this. I'm not thrilled about exactly how this is looking yet, but I think I'll get there. Just take a couple layers. This is really more suited. This is why, again, why I like switching to oil paints, because when you're doing something like this with oils, you're allowed to work it for really as long as you want during that painting session. Work at it for several hours before you're happy with it. That's just one of, it's funny, a lot of people tend to think and tend to say that acrylics are so forgiving. Try acrylics, and their forgiving properties. But I think oils as being kind of the same way. They're so forgiving. So it's funny, I don't think either one is more or less forgiving than one another. I think they're forgiving in different ways. So acrylics forgive you in such a way where you can paint over the top and replace what you're doing in a matter of, just like that. But with oils, they're forgiving in a way that, such a way that allows you to keep playing with something until it looks just right. You don't have that with acrylics, and conversely with oils, you don't have the ability to make drastic changes on the fly. Let things dry, make a new layer. So they each have their trade-offs. I think that again, kind of is sort of another reason just why I do switch to oils, because each have their own advantage. Acrylics dry fast. I see that as an advantage, not a disadvantage. Oils dry slow, and that's another advantage for oils. So they each have their advantage, and I guess I try to just combine them together to utilize both of those advantages. They're they work in such a unique way from one another to one another. And if you learn to use them together, you can create some cool stuff. If that's what you're after. Only if that's what you're after. Everybody's after a different thing. This is just what I think is fun to play with. Okay, so that, just kind of stand back. That starts to get us somewhere. I'm still not 100% sure. It's a bit rough right through here, and I could keep reworking that. But at this point with acrylic paint, it's really going to be hard to, because every time I lay down a line, that's the issue with acrylics, is that whenever I lay down one of these lines in the orange right here, it really becomes permanent almost immediately. It doesn't really allow me to work at it anymore. And in order to rework those lines right there, I sort of have to paint something over the top and cover it up completely, rather than, with oils, I could add to it. I wouldn't have to paint over it. So this particular type of texture becomes difficult with acrylics. It takes a lot more patience. Not that it can't be done, but it does take a lot of patience. So we'll see if I play with this a little bit more before I decide to go to oil paints, but right now it's becoming a challenge for me. And when that happens, I typically tend to find that it is time to switch and kind of take it to the next level. So I'll probably leave it pretty much just like that. Now, the only other thing that I can think of off the top of my head to try this at this point is to go the other way. So mix the highlights, which would be like white and yellow together, a little medium, and some water. And just come from the other way with some bright yellow. Go into the orange from up top. So yeah, I think that's helping a little bit. It looks cool. Anyways, I like it. But not sure what else I'm going to do at this point. It's what I would call a pretty good looking acrylic painting. All right, well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to switch to oil paints, and I'm going to include this at the end of the video, probably in time-lapse version, just to show you what I'm doing with oil paints. It's really the same process, just one more layer over the top just to smooth out and sharpen up some things. Probably bring out a little bit of saturation and that, give it that pop that you can with oil so easily. So I'm going to show you a little bit with that. But if you guys have questions, again, as always, just let me know. And of course, I give away free prints, so check out my free print giveaway if you guys are interested. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.